Hey guys, back again with another item from my personal collection. This is a very rare college football program. It's Notre Dame versus the University of Iowa. And I'm going to explain how come it's so rare. And if we look at the date here, November 23rd, 1963. So the day before, November 22nd, was a Friday. And that was the date that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So a national tragedy. And the next day, college football Saturday, the colleges had a decision to make whether or not they should continue on with the games. And being late in the season, for a lot of these teams, it would have been the last game of the season. And some colleges did decide to play. It's kind of surprising to me. And actually, the NFL went on to play on Sunday. The thought was that John F. Kennedy was a sports enthusiast and a fitness enthusiast, and that he would have wanted the games to play. And I got to believe that being late in the season, that many of the teams would have been their last game and they would have been playing for a championship or to go to a certain bowl. I mean, very few teams played, but it's surprising to me that any of them did. But Iowa's head coach was Jerry Burns at the time, who coached for Iowa for 5 years. He decided that it was a no-brainer that they weren't going to play. And Notre Dame actually was willing to play. They would have been in Iowa City already for the game, and they were willing to play. And also, this was Iowa's last game of the year. So Notre Dame was willing to come back 2 weeks later and play. So it would have been December by that time. And Iowa just felt that with it would have been too much of a disruption on the players' academics, being towards the end of the semester and finals and all that. Another 2 weeks added on would have been too much of a distraction and take away for them from their academics. And also, Notre Dame and Iowa, they weren't very good teams at this time. Notre Dame finished 2-7. And Iowa, this would have been their last game. They ended up the season 3 wins, 3 losses, and 2 ties. So Jerry Burns decided against playing. And one note on Jerry Burns, he coached for Iowa for 5 years. He was a coordinator for the great Packers teams in the 60s, and he was part of the Super Bowl 1 and 2 championship teams. And also he was a coordinator for the Vikings and also a head coach. So he spent around 50 years in the game, and he just passed away recently. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame. He's not. I would expect that someday he would get in. But anyways, this program, there would have been thousands of these programs printed. And so the majority of them got thrown away. And the reason why I think this one survived is I have a media guide sheet here that came with this. It was stuck inside of this program. And so this would have been in the press box. They probably got this program a day or two before to study up on the players on both sides. I'm guessing that this was either a radio announcer that had this program or TV or newspaper. So it has kind of interesting thing here. It has how to pronounce. So I'm guessing these are the offensive players on each team. So it has how to pronounce their last name, and then it has some instructions, press box instructions, and then the scores of the previous games, and the Big Ten standings, and the Iowa schedule, scores of the Iowa games, more press box instructions. And so the person I got this from was an antique dealer, and he had 2 of these programs. He's never seen a media sheet. I've never seen one, and there are very few of these programs that actually exist. Like I said, there would have been thousands of them thrown away. And being that this was the last game, they probably didn't anticipate. Maybe if they would have played Notre Dame later on, they could have kept the same program, maybe changed the front cover or something. But since it was the last game, they probably just threw everything out. So I got to believe I have no idea how many there are of these, but I'm guessing there's a dozen or so. I really don't know. But unless you were a press box member or closely associated with the football program, you wouldn't have had the opportunity to get one of these. So I've never opened this, maybe just briefly, but I wanted to make a video on just going through this a page at a time. And this will be the last time I personally open this. And I'm sure there's some people that would like to see this program. Never had the opportunity to see the inside. So I'm going to go through that. So generally, with these programs, you're going to have some advertisements, and they're going to have photos of the players. They're going to have some university information. There's Forrest Evashevsky. He was the University of Iowa head coach in the 50s, and they were really a great college team back then. So it has some information here, looks like, on his career as a coach. So no other university can match Iowa's record of finishing in the top 6 of the national polls 4 times in his last 5 seasons. This included 3rd in AP and UP polls in 1956, 6th in AP, and 5th in UP in 1957, 2nd in both 1958 and 1960. So they really had a good team. They had really good players. They were in the Rose Bowl, 57 and 58, I believe. So Iowa was quite good. There's Jerry Burns. And then Paul Krause, he played in the NFL. He's an NFL Hall of Famer. Wally Hilgenberg, he was in the NFL. Here's a radio advertisement there out of Des Moines, WHO. So Jim Zabel was the voice of the Hawkeyes for many, many years. And Randy Duncan was the quarterback under Evashevsky in the 50s. He was a Rose Bowl quarterback. So there's photos of the coaches and sports officials. There's a TV advertisement. So generally, this is what you're going to get in all these kind of programs. The university, whoever the home team is, they're going to have mostly information on the university, and also the photos of the coaching staff and all the players. And then they will have some photos. So there's the Notre Dame campus of the other team's campus and the other team's players and coaches. So there is the New Rockney Memorial and the Sacred Heart Church, some classic scenes from the Notre Dame campus. Here is the head coach, Hugh DeVore. So Eric Parsegian started coaching in 1964. He had a long run for Notre Dame and was extremely successful for them. Bob Lehman was a good player, so that he was the captain of Notre Dame. Here's I believe these would be senior players for Iowa. There's fight songs for Iowa. There's Notre Dame. And in the middle here we have all these programs have the same kind of setup. So this is the Notre Dame, looks like, so the starting lineups, probable starting lineups, and then the complete squad. And then we have Iowa and the Hawkeye squad. And in most cases, these are cigarette ads in the center with the rosters. So there's a couple enjoying the game, smoking some cigarettes. And you can imagine that was going on throughout the stadium. So the Notre Dame complete roster there again. Some more Iowa players. Notre Dame, Iowa. Like I said, most of these are going to just be set up the same way. Another cigarette ad. There's an interesting article here. So Cuban refugees trained at SUI, that's State University of Iowa. And Cuban refugees teaching Spanish classes in 29 Iowa high schools this year as a result of a special program. So these would have been Cubans that fled Fidel Castro's regime. They must have came through Florida. Yeah, so Cuban refugees living in Miami, Florida, selected to come to Iowa. That's an interesting article. So you just have little articles like that and information on the university. There's a car ad. It'll be in all these kind of programs. The Iowa head coaches and the rest of the coaching staff. Iowa basketball schedule. Some more photos. Here it talks about the 1962 game, Notre Dame versus Iowa. So they had actually a long rivalry. I don't know the exact date when they started playing on a yearly basis, but Iowa and Notre Dame played from like 1940 or 1941 up until this game, and then they played in 1964. And it might say in here somewhere, but and then they played a few years after that, and then they never played again. So since like the late 60s, they haven't played, if I'm not mistaken. There's the team photo for the Iowa Hawkeyes, 1963. So the 75th anniversary of the team, actually, in 63. Okay, guys, that's it. I wanted to show this, give people an opportunity to see it who maybe have never seen this. Iowa fans, Notre Dame fans, and college football fans. Please like and subscribe to the videos. Comment if you'd like, and I'll read all your comments and respond. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.